The NDAA is set to pass when Congress returns from August recess, which will, of course, authorize an $886 billion defense budget. Now, Roger Wicker, senator from the great state of Mississippi, introduced an amendment to this bill to create an Office of the Lead Inspector General for Ukraine assistance. Pardon me. This would be a $10 million project to oversee and monitor the billions of dollars being sent to Ukraine. So he introduces this add-on to the bill, $10 million over $886 billion. So cost, obviously, not really an issue there. The yeas had it in the vote. So they actually had more senators vote yes to create this panel than vote no. 51 yeas, 48 nays. But the Democrats, all but two of whom voted against accountability for Ukraine funding, invoked, which is really surprising because it's a racist Jim Crow era tool to suppress progress. They invoked the filibuster to block the vote. And so this panel amendment failed, even though it had majority support. Every Democrat but two voted against this. And so let's just bring up the votes here to see who voted how. Pretty much a party line vote. The only Republican who joined the Democrats was Rand Paul, and Rand Paul seems to have objected to this on his sort of staunch libertarian grounds of like not creating any other sort of bureaucratic institutions on top of the ones that already exist.
Right. He wants to take the office of the Afghanistan Inspector General and transfer it to
Ukraine it over
instead of creating a new department.
So he had a very, very specific sort of technical objection. Aside from that, all Democrats voting no, including, of course, Bernie Sanders, including, of course, Elizabeth Warren. All the progressive Democrats voted no on oversight for Ukraine funding. The only two Democrats who voted yes were John Ossoff, Democrat from Georgia.
What the fuck?
Well, I have a theory as to why this is. And
like
Tester.
If there was anybody I was convinced was an animatronic device that they had run.
Yeah, right. Programmed to do what they want. It was Ossoff. Indeed. You had Ossoff and John Tester from Montana, very, very conservative Democrat from a very, very conservative state. And also you had Kristen Sinema, who is now technically, of course, an independent, but she is more or less a Democrat still. They were the only Democrats who voted yay. Now, if you notice this, the thing that's interesting here is that you have the so-called progressives like Bernie and Warren saying, no oversight for World War III funding necessary. What do you notice about the three Democrats who voted yes? They're all moderate Democrats from swing states, if not red states. Tester in a red state. So now things are so topsy-turvy that it's not even the progressives who dissent from war anymore within the Democratic Party. They are falling in line. It's the centrists now. Now it's the moderates. Now it's the kinds of Democrats it's the blue dogs. It's the kind of Democrats who we could never stand, who know that because they are in difficult swing states, they have to vote in a way that doesn't alienate that moderate, independent, conservative-leaning swing voter. And what does it say that they feel compelled to vote for oversight for Ukraine? That really shows a turning of the tide in terms of opinion about the war, because now what that signals is that they are afraid of a normie backlash if they vote against that, which never used to happen, right? Normies were always, to put the support our troops bumper sticker on the car, the flag, the whole thing, right? Now it shows you that the vulnerable Democrats... Exactly. It was all that. That was all centrism back then. Now, what this signals to me is that if the only Democrats voting yes on this are Democrats in tough states, that really says that now the normie position is that this war has gotten out of control. And I think that's a very, very significant thing. Obviously, we could scream and yell about how Bernie's a pussy for getting cucked, and that's all true. That's all true. But we already knew that, right? We've known that for a couple of years now. What's interesting about this is that the moderates voted yes.
Sanders has become such a scumbag. It's sad to behold. It really is. I mean, it's just unbelievable how low he has sunk from what he purported to be. How do you vote no on oversight of sending? And I was reading what their defense for this was, saying, well, why you would do it in Afghanistan, where they all concede it was very successful, that when they sent in an inspector general to keep control of the money in Afghanistan. They're saying, well, that was a different situation. They had no functioning government. This is a society with robust civil institutions. The fuck are you talking about? This was the most corrupt nation in Europe before the war. You are pouring billions of dollars into the most corrupt nation in Europe in the middle of a war where it's very difficult to even keep track of things, even if you wanted to. You concede that American weapons have shown up on the black market. So what possible reason do you have other than procedural ones like Rand Paul's libertarian objection, which at least makes some kind of fucking sense? He's not arguing with the principle of the thing.
Right.
What objection do you have to having oversight over fucking billions of dollars you're dumping into a country that you know was deeply corrupt? That before all this blew up, you weren't going to let in NATO because it was partly because it was too corrupt.
And even after this all blew up, we had a lot of reporting about concern for this very thing. And I'm not just talking about the Seymour Hersh piece where he made the allegation that Zelensky was embezzling money and that the generals were driving around in, fancy cars and things. And I'm not saying I have any reason to doubt Seymour Hersh on that. I don't. But I'm saying even if you want to discard that as saying, well, they only had one source, whatever, you go back, just Google Ukraine corruption funding. There have been stories written since the war started, after the war started, March 2022, April 2022, January 2023, December 2020. They're dated all over the place, even after the war started. This is not some made-up concern, okay? It's been reported in dozens of outlets, dozens of times, that there is reason to be concerned about sending tens of billions of dollars at a time to this government, given their track record. And so how you could be against a $10 million oversight panel as an amendment to an $886 billion budget, it's absolutely mind-boggling, because the money is not an issue. Right? That's not it. So what the fuck could it be? What the fuck could it possibly be? Especially since, as Russell, you said, Rand Paul says the Afghanistan panel worked very well.
Well, so do they. They
Right.
concede it, but they're trying to say it's not the same thing because Ukraine has a really strong functioning government and civil institutions. I mean, right there, that's giving away the game. Because even if we were giving the money to Norway, we'd want an oversight panel. Sure. Why wouldn't you? Well, and especially you know that these weapons have ended up on the black market. How did they get there? Right. They fell off the back of a truck?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So why would you not want to stop things like that from happening in the future? I hate to tell you, there's a long history of blowback when we send these kinds of weapons overseas, where this kind of, you ever heard of Al-Qaeda? Where this kind of thing comes back on us. Right? So why would you not want to track the weapons and make sure they don't wind up on the black market? It's crazy. And clearly, I mean, the only explanation I can find is they're afraid of what an inspector general would find.
Well, of course. Of course. I mean, that's the obvious answer, right? That's the obvious answer. I just want to put this tweet up here because I almost forgot about this. But, Bernie says, somehow we never have enough money for healthcare, education, or housing, but always have more than enough money for a bloated and wasteful Defense Department that cannot even pass an independent audit. It's time to change our national priorities now. Lee Fong quote tweeted that. LOL, within about 15 hours from this tweet, Bernie Sanders voted against the special inspector general audit of $117 billion in Ukraine war money / contractor. So yeah, I mean, if you make this point, hey, we never have money to take care of our people, but we just ship money out the door willy-nilly, then how do you, I guess he voted for that after this. I'm sorry, I got the timing backwards about that at first. Pardon me. But how do you then go and vote against the $10 million oversight panel, which could potentially save you money? It could save you a lot of money because, as what Russell said, that's almost certainly the case, that they're afraid of what a panel would find, and then they'd be under pressure to cut the money off, right? So if you really were so concerned, Mr. Sanders, about us wasting all this money over there, you would have voted yes for the oversight panel.
Of course. And what is
the other layer of hypocrisy, I'm sorry, the invocation of the filibuster, right? After all this talk, we need to abolish the filibuster. It's this old racist thing, and now they use that. Maybe that's why they don't want to abolish the filibuster, right? Maybe that's the real
exactly
reason.
What I was
because
thinking.
They need it in place for situations like this.
Right. What if they didn't have it? Then everyone's going to find out that, it's like Boss Tweed over there. 90% of the money went to the fucking pockets of Zelensky and his generals. Like, God knows what they would find if they dug up what these people did with hundreds of billions of dollars when we know they were deeply corrupt in the first place. It's going to make Afghanistan look like Switzerland if they dig into the finances over there. Obviously, if you didn't have anything to hide, you wouldn't lean on CBS not to report on questions like this, right? So, there's another case where we're seeing, the terrifying influence the government has over the media at this point, where even if somebody steps out of line and tries to do honest reporting, they get swatted down and they're afraid of losing their access, so they back down. And Elizabeth Warren at the same time is running around insisting on more oversight for the Pentagon.
Right.
So why do you not want this oversight in a foreign nation where we're dumping? I mean, these people are just all fucking clowns. I mean, it really demonstrates what FDR was saying. This is what happens if you put a bunch of experts in control. They're driving the country into the ground. You got a bunch of out of touch elites with a groupthink elite perspective who are just doing what makes sense and what benefits people within their class. The defense contractors that write them a lot of checks, I'm sure, also don't want any oversight in Ukraine. And there's another one of these bizarre spectacles of our times. Apparently, the Republicans are more independent from defense contract influence than Democrats are at this point. This is why anybody who says you have to vote Democrat, what the fuck are you talking about? Why?
Please clap.